Hello, everyone, and welcome to this 988 Suicide and Crisis Hotline Recognition event. It's great to have so many people here. My name is Jessica Lucas, and along with Jason Watkins, I represent Sedgwick County Commissioners in the Kansas State House. Mental health investments have long been a priority of the Commission, and this year we were proud to support funding for the 988 Crisis Hotline, a service that will be available to Kansans beginning this Saturday, July 16th. To kick off the celebration of this critical legislation, I want to introduce now Commission Chairman David Dennis to say a few words.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate it. And good morning. I'm David Dennis, Chairman of the Sedgwick County Board of County Commissioners, and it's a pleasure to take part in this landmark moment for mental health. I'd like to first welcome and thank Governor Laura Kelly for joining us today. We're pleased to have you in Sedgwick County and to host this historic signing for Kansas. I'd also like to recognize Representative Brenda Landwehr, who will be speaking, Representative Susan Ruiz, Representative John Epley, Representative Mary Lynn Poskent, Senator Olathe Faust Godot, Representative Cindy Neighbor, Representative Bill Clifford, Representative Kathy Wolfmore, Senator David Haley, Representative Chuck Schmidt, Representative Heather Meyer. I'd also like to recognize Commissioner Andrew Brown from the Kansas Department of Aging and Disabilities. And we also have in the audience Sarah Lopez, Pete Meitzner, Lacey Cruz, and Jim Howell, all of our commissioners. Thanks for everyone for joining us today, because it took a number of people in order to make this happen. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our lobbyists, Jason Watkins and Jessica Lucas, for helping us push the 911 suicide prevention hotline across the finish line. Behavioral health is the #1 priority for Sedgwick County's legislative platform for 2022. We asked the governor and legislature for 4 major behavioral health issues that are facing Sedgwick County and the state, and those included support for a regionalized state mental health facility, including its one in or around Sedgwick County. This issue is still being worked today, thanks to a $15 million that was put in the Kansas budget, and we have hope for another $25 million from state ARPA funding. If we get both of those, we'll have $40 million, and this will become a reality. We also asked to strengthen and enhance Medicaid safety net model in Kansas, support workforce initiatives to increase medical and clinical resources, and finally, 988 suicide prevention lifeline funding. And that's what we're here to talk about today. The 988 Suicide Prevention Hotline launches this Saturday in just 5 days. But it's taken years of work and collaboration on the local, state, and federal levels to make this life-saving resource a reality. Soon, any Kansan that is in crisis can just dial 3 numbers, 988, and instantly connect with a trained mental health professional any time of the day, any day of the week. And no doubt, reaching that voice of calm and caring so quickly for people in an emotional crisis will make all the difference in the path that they choose. I am so proud that Sedgwick County's ComCare Crisis Center is playing a critical role in the 988 hotline. Our team of behavioral health professionals always stands ready to answer the calls for help. Right now, around 4,000 to 5,000 calls go through ComCare Crisis Hotline monthly. Of those calls, about 200 of them are routed from the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. ComCare's team of trained specialists help those in mental health crisis and can provide support to assist the caller in this critical time. And we have several of those in the audience today, and I thank them very much. The ultimate goal is to prevent even one suicide in our community. I especially want to thank the crisis call specialists for the vital life-saving work that they do. ComCare is just one part of Sedgwick County's overall commitment to better mental health for our residents. This year, the top priority on our legislative platform, as I mentioned, is the funding of critical funding for mental health care. The COVID-19 pandemic has only emphasized the importance of the response to mental health and the mental health needs of our community. Providing more resources and staff to attract and retain staff to support this increased need is our number one goal, and 988 Hotline matches our mission of enhanced access in Sedgwick County. I'm excited for the future of our region and the state, and this is a prime example of why we must continue building connections within our respective organizations and leverage the resources each of us as leaders have to move forward. Sedgwick County is proud to be an active partner in this endeavor. Again, thanks for everyone for being here, and I'll turn it back over to Jessica.
Thanks, Commissioner. Here in Sedgwick County, citizens experiencing a mental health crisis rely on the caring and dedicated staff at ComCare, several of whom are here. Joan Tammany is Executive Director of the organization, a passionate leader and effective advocate for mental health. She couldn't be here today, but we do have with us Jennifer Wilson, Director of Crisis Services, who's going to share some brief remarks.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Wilson, Director of Crisis Services, and with me today is Tara Leiden, Valerie Biggs, 2 integrated care specialists with our Crisis Center, and Lynn Kaur, a certified peer specialist with our Crisis Center. We thank you for taking the time to join us as we prepare for the launch of 988 that will take place this Saturday. I'd like to begin with a story from a person with lived experience and her experiences with ComCare's Community Crisis Center and its crisis line. Her name is Lynn Kaur, and she's here with us today, and she provided me with the following testimony. I was diagnosed with a severe and persistent mental illness 38 years ago and experienced debilitating depression and psychosis for most of those years. I made many suicide attempts, including 2, after which I was found unconscious. I became what I think is referred to as super utilizer of crisis services. The therapists and case managers there literally saved my life many times. In my case, my suicide attempts were often impulsive, and just talking through how I was feeling and what coping skills I could use when those thoughts and feelings became overwhelming would help. I could find a little light in the darkness of my mental illness. They always made sure I felt safe before I hung up the phone. Currently, I am well into my recovery and doing much better. In fact, I'm employed at Crisis as a peer support specialist where I can directly help individuals living with mental illness who are in crisis. It seems that because I can identify with some of those feelings and situations that they are going through, it may seem easier to talk to a peer specialist than someone who may have not experienced those feelings. At the Community Crisis Center, I work out of the area in which houses the crisis hotline workers, and I'm always amazed at how understanding, empathetic, and patient they are, and how they make dangerous situations safe. At times, they will answer calls to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, but they may miss some calls because it's hard to remember that 800 number. By making the phone number to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline a shorter 3-digit 988 number, it will be easier to remember and to access when an individual is in crisis, and it could save lives. Nothing is more important than that. Lynn's story demonstrates the importance of crisis services and having them available at the actual time of crisis. And thank you, Lynn, for sharing your story with us today. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline provides a free, confidential support to people in crisis who are in mental health or mental health-related distress 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for people across the state of Kansas. ComCare is excited to add the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline to the array of crisis intervention services already provided to residents of Sedgwick County. 988 aligns nicely with ComCare's work as a certified community behavioral health clinic by expanding access to mental health care, specifically through hotline and mobile crisis response services. This will allow the opportunity to expand the crisis support services that are offered, improving the service quality by improving the answer rate for callers in our area, reducing wait time for crisis services, and expanding the follow-up care offered for persons who call and are in suicidal crisis. The 988 bill will allow us to build the infrastructure required and provides us an opportunity to connect even more Kansans to mental health services that will provide immediate support and that are proven to be life-saving. In preparation for 988 implementation, ComCare has created 5 integrated care specialist positions whose focus will be on answering calls from the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Additionally, 1 full-time mobile crisis clinician position was created, which will provide an opportunity for mobile crisis response when appropriate. We will continue to work on enhancing our technology to aid in call distribution and data collection, which will support us in providing the highest quality of care possible. Speaking for everyone from ComCare, we are thankful for Governor Kelly, the Kansas legislators, and all others who worked hard to make this happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Representative Brenda Landwehr, as chairperson of the Health and Human Services Committee, has made mental health services a key priority of her committee's work. Securing funding for the 988 Suicide and Crisis Hotline would not have happened without her advocacy. She, along with Vice Chair John Epley and Ranking Member Susan Rees, both of whom are here today, pushed for adoption of the 988 policy until the final moments of the 2022 session. Now I'd like to have Brenda Landwehr, Representative Landwehr, to say a few remarks.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And I think what I'd like to do is, I know we had, after Commissioner Dennis introduced the legislators that were here, is there was a few others that came in afterwards, and I don't think Tom Sawyer, our minority leader, got mentioned, even though he'd been sitting there next to John Epley. And then we've got Senator Pat Petty back there. Senator Sykes, okay, I'm getting there. Minority leader. Senator Fagg, yes.
Senator Ethan Corson.
There we go. Carlin, Representative Carlin, and who else did we miss here?
Senator Mary Ware.
Oh, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I don't always get around to see all the senators and all the new senators that are out there, so I apologize for that. This is quite an honor, and it's an exciting moment because this has been 2 years, well, actually several years in the making, but the last 2 years we spent a lot of time on this. And there's 2 people that I really want to thank in here is Representative Wolf Moore, a Democrat, and she's the ranking Democrat on the Appropriations Committee, and she was there with me the entire time along with several of our other colleagues. And then I couldn't do what I do without my Vice Chair, Representative John Epley, on the Health and Human Services Committee. But it has just been such an honor and a privilege to do the work that I've had the opportunity to participate in over the last several years. Mental health crisis has always been an issue, a major issue, but COVID escalated all of that. And some good things have come out of it, and I think that people are more aware of it. We've got more programs out there, and we're targeting things. One of the things that I'm very excited about with this 988 is the ability to make sure that we can handle these calls. Kansas has currently 3 call centers in place ready to handle these calls. We have ComCare here, we have the National Line in Lawrence, and then we also have Johnson County Mental Health Center. We look forward to having a fourth one. I believe we're looking at maybe the Topeka area. Is that about right? So if for some reason, because there's a requirement, these calls have to be answered with X number of rings, and if they're not, they will roll over to one of the other call centers. When a person answers that phone, as you heard earlier, it will be a mental health professional to hopefully be able to help them to de-escalate a situation that they are facing. If they're not able to do that with the individual on the call, there will be the ability to send out a mobile crisis unit. Something we haven't heard about in this bill, because it's not in the title of this legislation, is there will also be mobile crisis units for our IDD population. And sometimes those can become very dangerous situations, not only for the individuals, but also for law enforcement and others that go out to deal with them. So I just can't say enough, and it's the people across the state, it's the people out here that provide the services that give me the knowledge, because this is not my bailiwick into my private life whatsoever, but I think every one of us has had an opportunity, unfortunately, to know someone, whether it's a friend, it's a neighbor, or it's a family member, or someone that we work with. It impacts every single budget in the state of Kansas, as well as in businesses across the state, in lack of productivity, tardies, maybe multiple days off from work. So I'm excited that now we're going to be able to get more services to individuals. Yes, we are going to deal with a workforce shortage. We understand that. But I can tell you that there are things in the work for us to figure out how can we get individuals to be ready to answer that call. Trying not to repeat a lot of things that you've already heard, but it's just a very, very exciting time. Two other things I want to touch on is that we will be monitoring this program, making sure that the calls are being answered, and everyone that calls that 988 line will get a follow-up call to make sure that he or she got services. And if they didn't, what happened and how do we resolve that? So we're going to be monitoring the effectiveness of this. It's not something that's just going to be out there. We're not going to be paying attention to it. There is a committee that's been formed within the bill for that. So I want to thank everybody here. And I'm going to mention Kathy again, because she also worked with me on the K-12 mental health pilot program. And she's not coming back, so I'm going to miss you next year, assuming I'm back. We never take anything for granted. But we can't do it with all these legislators out here, and it was truly a bipartisan effort. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure now to introduce KDAT's Commissioner Andy Brown, another key figure in the bipartisan collaboration that brought this policy and funding to the governor's desk. Commissioner Brown has prioritized 988 funding and other key behavioral health initiatives to help the Kansans who need them, and it's an honor to have him here today in recognition of the upcoming 988 hotline implementation.
All right, my name is Andy Brown, and I'm happy to be here today, in part not just to celebrate the passage into the 988 bill, but also to talk about the great partnership that we have with ComCare here in Sedgwick County. And I really do want to point out that Sedgwick County has been a part of this process over the last several years. I think we originally started working with an NSPL in Sedgwick County probably around like 2016 or so. And we've been building capacity and support for that program along the way. And they were very instrumental in participating in our planning activities over the previous 2 years around what we were going to do with 988 and how we were going to implement that. Last year, the legislature was able to give us $3 million in funding that allowed us to work with the call centers, including here in ComCare, to help start building the infrastructure that we were going to need in order to be ready for this weekend and the launch of 988. So this bill has now launched the additional funds that we need in order to be able to fully support all the calls that come into the 988 call centers around the state, and also provide those secondary services of mobile crisis services and crisis stabilization support. So we're looking forward to being able to support those people that are here in Sedgwick County, giving them a 3-digit number that they can directly connect to their local CCBHC, which was another huge piece of legislation passed last year. And ComCare is one of the first 6 CCBHCs here in Kansas that we were able to certify at KDAD, so we're really excited about that. And I can't say enough about the partnership and the dedication that we've received here in Sedgwick County around mental health issues, both with the state delegations and the local county and city. So we appreciate your support, and the advocates out there do too, and we're excited to be here today for the signing.
Okay, the big moment with Governor Laura Kelly, whose commitment to ensuring Kansans have access to mental health resources has been a focus of her political service. Governor, we thank you for joining us today to help commemorate this legislation and acknowledgement that help is just 3 numbers away, 988.
Well, thank you, Jessica. And before I begin, I just have to tell you how impressed I am with the number of legislators who showed up this morning. And even one who's never on time beat me here. So it does show your true dedication, but also shows the importance of this issue and how impactful this will be. So I want to thank you all for being here today to celebrate this new tool that will be available for Kansans in crisis. I want to thank all the mental health professionals who are here in the audience this morning. You're the ones who are going to make this work. I also want to thank our Sedgwick County Commissioners, David Dennis, who you just heard from, and the whole line of them. You guys are all here too, aren't you? Very impressive. Okay, Andy Brown, thank you very much for being here and all the work you did to get this done. Obviously, Representative Brenda Landwehr, thank you very, very much. I know how hard you have worked on this, along with Representative Wolf Moore and some folks from the Senate too. I see Senator Petty over there and Senator Ware and Senator Sykes. Because of all of your advocacy, we're going to save Kansas lives. This tool comes at a particularly important time. The truth is, we're facing a mental health crisis here in the United States. In 2020 alone, 1 American died by suicide every 11 minutes. Among young Americans ages 10 to 34, suicide is a leading cause of death. No exception here in Kansas. Our statewide suicide mortality rate is higher than the national average. Here in Sedgwick County, the rate is even higher and has been trending upward for the last decade. But suicide isn't the only thing that's counted when we measure what experts call the depths of despair. We also consider drug overdoses and alcohol poisoning, both of which have increased here in Kansas in recent years. Now, responding to this crisis is not easy, but it's absolutely critical. Very early on, I witnessed firsthand the debilitating effects of mental illness. Every summer after high school, I worked at a camp in New York, where many kids from dysfunctional families came for a respite from the turmoil facing them in the inner cities. Later, I worked in both a juvenile correctional facility and a state psychiatric center for kids with severe mental illness. I learned a lot through those experiences, most importantly, that people suffering from mental illness and their families need support and access to services. For too long, those with mental illness were considered untreatable. In fact, the opposite is true. The vast majority of people with mental illness are highly treatable, and with the right resources and systems in place, can lead healthy and productive lives. That's why I'm pleased to be here to launch Kansas's new suicide prevention and mental health crisis hotline, 988. Just as every American knows to call 911 in times of emergency, every American and every Kansan will soon know to call 988 when they or a loved one is facing a mental health or substance abuse crisis. I signed bipartisan Senate Bill 19 last month to fund 988 and invest in call centers and response services. Starting this Saturday, July 16th, Kansans and all Americans will be able to call 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to be connected to a trained professional. Services will be available in multiple languages and will also be available over text and email. But here's the thing, the number only works if everybody knows about it. Just as parents should teach their kids to dial 911, every parent should teach their kid to dial 988 when there's a mental health or substance abuse crisis. Please tell your friends, post on social media. Starting this Saturday, we can all call 988 in times of need. I will do my part to keep spreading the word. With 988, we're on the path to reversing our country's mental health crisis and getting Kansas the very help that they need. And with that, I'm going to ceremonially sign Senate Bill 19.
Do you want the legislators to come on up?
Legislators come up.
You get the center spot here. The tall guys in the back.
Yep.